Okay, like okay. Okay, good evening, guys. I welcome all of you to orientation session of Daily Answer Writing and Mentorship Program. And this is, as many of you already know, this is one of the program that we organize only once a year, specifically before students make a shift to prelims mode. So we organize this around November and December, and this is a 2 months program where we reserve 1 month for paper 1 and second month for paper 2, and bullet by bullet according to syllabus we target to finish the whole syllabus of sociology within 2 months by giving 3 questions daily, um, which are uploaded on your portal at 12 p.m. sharp, out of which 2 are evaluated within 3 hours, and the third question is for your practice. The model answer are uploaded the same day and discussion takes place next day, and this goes on for 2 months regularly, and at the end of the each month we have one full length test for paper 1 and 2 each. So by the end of 2 months we end up having approximately 120-130 questions solved from PYQ and other questions also, which are new ones. Now, other than these details which are already known to us, what I want to begin with today in terms of orientation session is the basic idea to help students understand exactly how we go about this program. How do we manage this program for 2 months? What do we do exactly in these 2 months? So I thought let us have one practice question today and understand how do we approach any question in general, and I will list out 5 steps which you can make a note of before you begin answer writing on any question. You can take those 5 steps as template in your hand, as a ready-made template that can help you target any question in a very objective manner. Okay. So एक क्वेश्चन से शुरुआत करते हैं, एक क्वेश्चन लेके चलते हैं फ्रॉम PYQ ओनली, यूपीएससी का ही PYQ जो है उसी का एक क्वेश्चन लेके चलते हैं, राइट? सो देयर इज दिस क्वेश्चन, हाउ according to Merton are deviant subcultures generated? This is a question from year UPSC 2019. This was 10-mark question. Okay, let us understand approach to answer writing keeping this question as sample. Now read this question carefully and I'll tell you steps one by one how to approach any question. Okay, step number 1 is, and this is actually very serious step, it is not a step that you begin your answer writing directly with, but it is a step which can be seen as a prelude to answer writing, which is think for 30 seconds for a 10 marker question. Think for 30 seconds. Usually for a 10 marker question, if you go by the whole logic of calculating how much time you are left with in order to solve the full 3-hour paper, you will see that for a 10 marker question, you have roughly about 8 minutes. And out of 8 minutes, if you reserve 30 seconds pure for thinking separately, your answer will definitely have a flow much better than someone who would directly begin his answer writing without thinking anything. And he will end up thinking after every sentence that he writes, making his answer way more unorganized in comparison to someone who may have reserved 30 seconds prior to answer writing for thinking purpose. Okay. Now, what do we think in these 30 seconds? Firstly, just check the keywords. What are the keywords in the question? In this question, of course, according and how are not keywords. deviant subcultures generated. There are total 3 keywords. So that means step number 2 is identify keywords. This is the step number 2. Fine. And this is going on in those 30 seconds only. In the 30 seconds, you are identifying the keyword. And once you have identified the keyword, the step number 3 is form relation between keywords. That means identifying keyword alone is not sufficient. In those 30 seconds, you also have to think of relationship between the keywords which are asked in the question. Now the keywords are deviant subculture generated. That means you have to understand deviant subculture is generated means is the consequence. That means something must have happened because of which this consequence is taking shape. So that means if we understand deviant subculture, it is effect because it is generated. Something must have happened because of which deviant subculture got generated, right? So that means we have got a rough structure where we know in these 30 seconds only we have to figure these things out. Okay, so that when we start writing, our answer will have some flow. We know that we have to write some cause and then we have to come to deviant subcultures. Fine. Now if I keep these things in my mind, the keywords, the relationship, the next thing is when I start answer writing now, this is purely going on in the thinking mode. Now comes writing mode. In the writing mode, step number 1 is definition of keywords. Now what were the keywords that we had identified? There were 3 keywords deviant subculture generated. Out of these, there are only 2 words which can be defined. You don't need to define generated, right? Of course, for obvious reasons, but you definitely have to define deviant subculture or either deviance and subculture. It is better to start off with the definition of deviance and subculture. You can take these two as 2 different keywords, or you may club the 2 and directly define deviant subculture. Okay, it is up to you, but that will be your step number 1 in the writing mode, which is the definition. So for our convenience, we will define deviant subculture. Now you may think that when you read Merton, you read deviance, but you did not directly read. This is what I am assuming. You may not have directly read deviant subculture. Now the question is, how do we define it? Well, the problem is, firstly, we must understand subculture is part of the theory, the sociological theory. In any system, be it school, be it coaching, be it workplace, there are 2-3 kind of groups coexisting. One is the mainstream culture at the workplace, in the school, which work according to schedule and which fulfills all the duties and work according to rules. And then there is subculture which do not follow all the rules, breaks away from the rule, do not comply with the duties, or may miss out on targets. And then there is counterculture which goes against the rules. Subculture is not going against, it is just deviating. That means it is not following. But the counterculture is openly criticizing the very workspace, very school system, etc., as to why it exists, these things, why, what is the purpose of these things. So deviant subculture refers to basically any group whose lifestyle do not fit into mainstream society, whose lifestyle do not fit into mainstream society, they are doing something which is going against the mainstream society, not following the norms. Now, according to Merton, the norms of the mainstream was the goals of material success and the means of education. These two were supposed to have been followed by America. Okay. But in the America of those times when he studied, he found there is mismatch. That means there are many people who either don't have education to obtain the success, material success, or there are people who don't even believe in material success. That way, all these groups would be called as deviant subculture because they are going against the mainstream. Because the mainstream is about conforming to material success through legitimate means of education, unlike the subcultures who will either go against the system of obtaining success material, or they will go for illegitimate means to obtain the material success. All of these would be called as subculture. So we know, according to Robert Merton's theory, that yes, conformist is not to be written here. What is to be written here is all other groups other than conformist, right? Which is innovators, ritualists, retreatists, specifically, and rebellion. Now the question is, what is the process of generation of these four? This is the demand. What is the process of generation of four subgroups or four subcultures, like ritualists, retreatists, innovators, and rebellion? This is what we have arrived at. Okay. That means in our answer, we will first define the keyword deviant subculture, and then we will continue with what we call as another step, step number 2, which is subheading in your answer. And here the sub answer, in this answer, the subheading would be process of generation of deviant subculture. So that means definition of keyword and then process of generation, because we have to target the cause, and the cause is the process, or the process is the cause leading to deviant subculture. So this would be the rough structure. Okay, rough structure. I'm not going to write the full-fledged answer here, but this is going to be rough structure. You first reserve time for thinking, 30 seconds, and then you identify the keyword in the 30 seconds. You form correlation if there is any in the 30 seconds, and then you define the keyword starting with the writing mode, and then go on with the subhead part. Rest of the things follow according to the demand. But remember, what is not to be done is writing notes as it is, which means if you end up writing everything about deviance, that anomy is this, deviance is this, there are 5 groups, all these groups are these are the examples. Now let examiner understand on their own where is the process of generation. You did not write the process of generation. Now the process of generation lies in something else. It is not just writing the whole table. You have to explicitly write how they are generated, and which means you have to explain that when goals are uniformly distributed, but means are not, this leads to generation of strain. जब किसी भी सिस्टम के अंदर, किसी भी समाज के अंदर सबको ये बोल दिया जाए कि आप सबको मटेरियली सक्सेसफुल होना है, पैसा बनाना है, पावर हासिल करनी है, स्टेटस बढ़िया पाना है, बट जो मीन्स हैं, मीन्स लेजिटिमेट वाले टू ऑब्टेन दीज थिंग्स आर नॉट यूनिफॉर्मली डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड. That means education is not in the hands of everybody because of different class positions, and people don't inherit same kind of wealth from their father and forefather because of differences in class position. तो होगा क्या? Everybody, although will aspire to achieve material success, but many of them may aspire to achieve it through illegitimate means because they don't possess the legitimate ones because of the structural conditions, and this will create strain in the system. और जब सिस्टम के अंदर स्ट्रेन आता है, दिस इज समथिंग दैट यू हैव टू विजुअलाइज, जब सिस्टम के अंदर स्ट्रेन आता है तो इन रिस्पॉन्स टू स्ट्रेन you will see different kind of reactions or different kind of adaptations taking place. So we will say in response to strain, different modes of adaptation, different modes of adaptation takes place. And what are the modes of adaptation? जब स्ट्रेन आता है तो कंफॉर्मिटी का मोड नहीं रहता. जब स्ट्रेन आता है यानी कि जब गोल्स डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड है, मीन्स नहीं, या फिर गोल्स ही क्वेश्चनड है और मीन्स रहे या ना रहे, डज नॉट मैटर. तो फिर मोड्स ऑफ अडेप्टेशन क्या होते हैं? वो होते हैं इनोवेशन, रिट्रीटिज्म, रिचुअलिज्म एंड रिबेलियन. इसका मतलब कि ये जो लोग इन मोड्स ऑफ अडेप्टेशन के साथ जाएंगे, दे विल एंड अप फॉर्मिंग डिविएंट सब कल्चर्स, एंड दिस इज व्हाट द प्रोसेस इज. दिस इज द प्रोसेस ऑफ जनरेशन. This is how deviant subcultures get generated. But unfortunately, what will happen is most of the students end up writing just 5 groups with table, with example. Innovator का वही traditional and wrong example like scientists जो कई बच्चे लिख रहे हैं. In case if you are watching, and please do correct it अगर आपके notes में कहीं ऐसा लिखा हुआ है innovator means scientist, क्योंकि कहीं आप English वाले innovator को confuse ना कर रहे हो Merton के innovator से. I don't know, but still it is my duty to just make sure that you don't learn the wrong thing. Innovator में robbers आते हैं. Okay, people who are going with illegitimate means to fulfill the material success or goals. Robbers आते हैं, scamsters आते हैं, digital arrest करने वाले लोग आते हैं आजकल तो innovation में. Okay, but not scientists. Okay, so process of generation has to be written, not just the table which is there in the notes. Okay, so this is what is going to differentiate your answer from many others who will write notes and they believe they have written answer, but that is not the case. So after writing everything, we start feeling that we have written everything, so we will get all the marks on planet Earth, but that does not happen because we have written everything, but we did not address the demand, the core demand. And that is what we emphasize a lot here in the DAM. We help students to understand the difference between what is asked and what you know. Once this is written, then you explain, then you make the table, and then your notes may continue here from there onwards. No issue. But the examiner will specifically look for this part. The mechanism of process of generation of deviant subculture is something that I wanted to emphasize here. Okay. So this is very important. Now I'll show you 2 different copies. Okay. Before I talk about conclusion and other parts, an example which is of course definitely very important. After the step 2 subheading, we must definitely also include the example, which is also very important part of answer writing. Step number 3, write examples, and we will write example for each of them, right? इन सब के लिए हम एग्जाम्पल जरूर देंगे जो हमारे पास हैं, बस ये कि प्रोसेस ऑफ जनरेशन आना जरूरी था, which is the demand. And of course then comes rest of the part according to convenience. It could be conclusion, it could be the critique part if required, otherwise not. Okay. Now I'll show you 2 answers on the same question. You will tell me which of these answers appear to be better to you guys. if you were to evaluate the same question written by two different candidates, same question, how would you have evaluated? Which of these would you have given higher marks? You will tell me, right? So I'll show you two different approaches. So there is this, describe Merton's views on process of generation of deviant subculture. Now there is a person who has written something. Merton explained about various goals, cultural goals, means to reach them. Gap between goals and means leads to deviance in society. Fine, but still see deviant subculture is missing in the answer. देख रहे हो ना आप, deviant subculture से भाग गए हैं, वो जो word था वो आया नहीं अभी यहाँ पे. Anyway, deviant subculture लिखकर सब हेडिंग देकर इन्होंने क्या किया, conformity लिख दिया. Are you noticing this? Conformity लिख दिया, जबकि conformist are not deviant subculture. Deviant तो अलग होते हैं conformist से, right? You can't write all the 5 in the deviant subculture. Then what is the meaning of conformity? If conformity is also deviant. Understood this point, right? So एक तो ये हो गया, यहाँ पे गड़बड़ हो गई ये वाली, ये नोट्स आ गया है, ओके. और डिविएंट सब कल्चर डिफाइंड नहीं है, इट इज लेफ्ट टू द इंटेलेक्ट ऑफ एग्जामिनर टू नाउ डिफाइन ऑन देयर ओन, ओके. अच्छा, सेकंड, इनोवेशन, ritualism, retreatism, rebellion. Basically notes are written, but the process of generation of deviant subculture, how they are generated, is not written. Can you see that? That is not written. It's basically an attempt to escape the demand and just complete the paper as soon as possible. Okay. Now, eventually, after writing these 5, a table is also made, plus minus, but that is not going to help, right? Because the main demand is yet to be addressed. Plus minus करने से कुछ नहीं होएगा, right? अभी demand तो आई नहीं. So this is तो but just notes, fine. And then writing some conclusion. Now see, this is one approach. This is one approach. Now see the second approach. See the second approach. This person has defined deviance, fine, and also has mentioned deviant subculture, any group whose lifestyle don't match with mainstream, fine, okay. And then process of generation of deviant subculture is also explicitly mentioned, fine. And almost same things are written, which we have just explained, and then he explained the types of deviant subcultures where conformists are not mentioned, only other 4 are mentioned. That means what? This is not just notes, this is the demand. And also, if you see, one more thing, the answer is very, very visible, something that you can easily notice. Unlike the previous answer, which was, although neat, but not as visible as the next answer. In the next answer, which I just showed you, you had enough spacing, giving breathing space to the examiner to go through the whole answer in less amount of time, vis-a-vis this answer, which appears to be relatively cluttered. Okay, so that means presentation part is something which we must take into consideration, not just the demand. Although in the first one, demand is also not there, and presentation wise is also not up to the mark as the second one, where we have demand and presentation both alike. Okay, so I hope you got the difference between the two approaches to understand one question. If you are there with me, please let me know if that made sense to you. And then I'll continue with the rest of the part which I wanted to explain to you. And so far, if you have any doubt, you may please feel free to ask the doubt. I'll continue with the questions also if you have any question, and then I'll discuss other part. Yes, okay, fine. So in this question, again to repeat, our main purpose was to keep 2 modes active when we see the question. One is thinking mode, second is writing mode. Most of the students directly start writing, and most of the students, when they start thinking, they always start thinking of heavy sentences, not to be done, because that will prevent you or restrict you to start writing as soon as possible. Most of us end up thinking of big jargons, heavy keywords, heavy sentences, heavy, beautiful sounding, rosy statements. That is not required. What is required is just look for the so-called keywords and form relation between them if you can find any. And then immediately start defining the keywords. Don't worry about any sentence. Just define the keywords, because we are thinking of completing the answer in 3 hours, not just trying to sound a PhD scholar, but we have to complete. And for that, we must be very objective. Our answer must be very, very legible and very clear and very, very organized. And then we can talk about the subhead part where we cover the body part. Okay. So in the whole process, critique was not so important. If you must have analyzed here, there is no scope for you to write critique. Now most of the students, what they do is, in order to, this is what they think, in order to get higher marks, let me drop 5-6 critique. No, that is not required. And what will eventually happen is, you will think that you have written high number of scholars, and that is why you will get higher marks, because this is how we quantitatively think, like, because we are, most of us are coming from science backgrounds, this is how we start thinking. So since we have written more number of thinkers, even if they are critique which is not required, still we will get higher marks. But that is not the case. In this question, what was required was the process of generation. If that is something you have skipped, you will not get marks, irrespective of how many scholars you drop later in the critique. That do not matter. And most of the times critiques simply become a part for us to complete the page. So please remember this thing. Critique was not required here. And even if you're writing critique, trust me, that will not be truly a critique of deviant subculture, but it will be critique of the way Merton explained the process of generation of deviant subculture. There are some other scholars also who have explained deviant subcultures, right? But instead of criticizing deviant subculture, we will end up criticizing Merton's way of explaining process of generation of deviant subcultures. So 1 or 2 scholars, okay, like Albert Cohen can be written, Clovard and Olin can be written very briefly, 1 or 2, maybe I think 3 or 4 sentences, not more than that. But this is how we will end up writing. Now, so please take a topic we know as one more example. Okay, please you tell me which topic you want me to explain. Accordingly I can, because I thought this will be more familiar to most of the students, because Robert Merton is anyway seen as very popular and very favorite among students. So if you let me know, I'll take one topic and then I'll continue with the same discussion. Okay. Let me take a topic called as sociology and common sense. This is the topic. Fine. And let me take now a question on this topic. How common sense acts like starting point for sociological research. This is UPSC's question, 10 marks. Fine. How common sense acts like starting point for sociological research. Now see, how do we approach this question? Okay. And we will also understand then in the whole process how answer appears to be quite different from the notes, unless the question is very direct. But in this case, the question is not so direct. Okay. Now see, what are the keywords? Think for 30 seconds. Same, apply the same formula. Think for 30 seconds. In the 30 seconds, identify the keyword and form the relation between the keywords. So 30 seconds, identify keywords and form relation between keywords. Don't take pressure of answer writing directly. Give some time to yourself for thinking mode. Okay. In the 30 seconds, I could find the keywords are common sense, then starting point, and then Of course, sociological research. These are the keywords. Now, identify the so-called relation between the keywords. Now, what is the relation? We can make a diagram for the relation in our mind, even if we don't drop it on the page. So, what is the diagram that we can end up with? Diagram would be something like this. Common sense is the beginning point for sociological research. This is just a mental framework. Okay, cause and effect, causal relation type. If not causal, at least it appears to be in, at least in our mind map, more like a starting point from which we develop sociological research. Okay. Now let us come to writing mode. What is going to be the writing mode? In the writing mode, we will define the keywords, and the keywords are common sense. Of course, starting point is something which need not be defined, right? Common sense can be defined. So we will define common sense. And very briefly, we will also define sociology or sociological research. It is up to you. So this much of play you can do. Either sociology can be defined or sociological research. It is up to you. Okay. These two keywords can be defined. Afterwards, you will write a subhead. Okay. Now, what is the subhead? Common sense as starting point. Directly jumping to the question. You're not wasting examiner's time. Directly jumping to the demand part. Common sense as starting point right up front. You are directly confronting the question demand. Okay, not escaping, not making diagrams, not drawing comparison or differences, not similarities, but directly common sense as starting point. Okay. Now, think like this. Just to give you one example, we will say common sense gives hypothesis to begin our research. Common sense gives hypothesis to begin our research. Like for example, क्योंकि until we write example here, things will not get settled in the mind of examiner, right? You also want example for this point, just like that examiner also wants example for this point. In common sense, who is at the top of the caste system? You tell me. I'm sure, I think there is a lag between what between the way between what I'm speaking and the way you are reading. I think there is some time lag. Okay. In common sense, we believe at the top of caste system is Brahmins. This is the common sense. Okay, this is providing us hypothesis, something which is yet to be tested. In the field, you will notice people have different perceptions. They would say, no, Jats are superior. In Punjab, people would say Jat Sikhs are superior. Okay, in different contexts, secular contexts, in Karnataka, Oka Ligas are superior. So that means Brahmanical supremacy is part of our common sense coming from the traditional text, but in the field, which is due to research, we come out with different observation. No, that it is not Brahmin, but different local communities which claim dominance. So this is what we can write here. So that means you began with a hypothetical point and you end up with invalidating that hypothesis through fieldwork research, which is a sociological research, right? Now that means if you had written such kind of examples, or if you had written such kind of point, very basic point, making very easily sense to the examiner, examiner would have gotten impressed right away the moment he would check your answer. He would not take even a second to understand whether you know the demand or not. And here, unlike many other students who would be writing comparison, similarity, differences, you would be hitting the bullseye. And that is what is more important in the given time, which is 8 minutes or 7 minutes. And so other points again you will generate. You can also say that common sense is useful for interpretative research. We know very well that the interpretative researchers consider our meanings, our experiences, our beliefs as their subject matter. How we attach meanings to things, why we marry, why we prepare for civil services, why we took divorce, why we stay single. There are meanings attached to these things, and these are usually seen as commonsensical ways of experiences of people, which are then held as something to be seen as subject matter for sociologist who is interested in the deep meaning of individual behind their action. And therefore we can easily say, for example, for example, um, rituals like ring exchange hold significance for interpretative research. And what is the significance of ring exchange? Commitment, lifelong unionship. अब देखने में लगता है रिंग एक्सचेंज हुई, बट इसके पीछे मीनिंग क्या है? लाइफ लॉन्ग कंपेनियनशिप. उसको दिखाने के लिए रिंग एक्सचेंज की जाती है. और ये छोटी सी बात है, हम सबको पता है क्योंकि हम सब इसी समाज के हैं. बट सोशियोलॉजिस्ट इज कमिंग, दिस इज व्हाट आई यूजुअली से इन द क्लास, सोशियोलॉजिस्ट इज कमिंग फ्रॉम प्लैनेट मार्स. एट लीस्ट दिस इज व्हाट यू विल फील व्हेन यू गो डीप इनटू सोशियोलॉजी. यू वुड ऑलवेज फील कि हाँ, एक आउटसाइडर नजरिया लगता है हमको एक सेकंड के लिए, अगर हम खुद आउटसाइडर बन जाए, समाज के ना रहें. एंड दिस इज समथिंग दैट सोशियोलॉजिस्ट हियर वुड explain to us through interpretative lens. Now such kind of points, which are very simple, directly hitting the bullseye along with example, is going to get you more marks than writing everything. Is something, this is what we are emphasizing in DAMP. Okay. And this goes on for 2 months. As I said in the initial uh, starting point of the class, 1 month full for paper 1. And of course there are total 3 questions that we give, और 2 slots होते हैं जो मैं दोबारा रिपीट करना चाहूंगा. There are total 2 slots in which you have to submit your answer, 12 to 3 p.m. and then 6 to 9 p.m. Okay. After 9 p.m. we don't take any copy because we have to deliver the evaluated copy within 3 hours. So we give enough time to our evaluation team also. So after 9 p.m. we don't get any copy. Slots are over after that. But 12 to 3 and 6 to 9 will make you force yourself to comply with the regulation and complete the answer of the given day. Okay. And everyday evaluation will help you understand how to get or write better the next day, only after knowing the mistakes that you may have committed in the previous day. Okay. So now we'll just open the session to question answer if you have any. The first question for DAMP, those who have schedule with them, they can check. The first question is going to be uploaded on 3rd of November. Tomorrow there is no question. Tomorrow is Sunday. Today was supposed to be orientation session according to schedule, if you have the schedule. If you don't have schedule, you may please join our Telegram group, Sociology Optional LevelUp IAS. You can check, and then you will see Telegram group channel where the schedule is there, or you can even visit the website where again you will come across the calendar, the DAMP calendar, DAMP Sociology calendar. There again you can check the schedule. Okay. So if you have any doubt, you are free to ask. Okay. And of course, what is more important, guys, remember, what is more important in these 2 months is that you can safely assume January onwards, most of us already know, in case you are appearing for the first time in UPSC, January onwards you will start feeling the pressure of prelims. You will never be able to give enough time to optional, let alone mains. And after prelims, which is 5 months from now, you would definitely feel that had you gotten yourself refreshed by browsing through Sociology optional in these 2 months, you would have felt way more confident to appear for mains after prelims. And that way, DAMP definitely helps, because it will help you brush through the whole syllabus in 2 months with regular questions that is given to you and with regular answers and evaluation. Okay. So please tell how to consolidate old notes or how much consolidation is required for DAMP. See, consolidation does not mean, very important term, something which I want to really now emphasize on. Consolidation does not mean addition in very simple language. If you are borrowing content from 10 sources and writing all the 10, compiling in your 11th note, this is not consolidation. This is not consolidation. Consolidation means you may have read multiple notes, but you know what is to be referred eventually in terms of summary, where you don't overdo or you don't duplicate your work. You don't read the same thing from 10 different sources and then you add all of them and call it consolidation. No, consolidation means you have read enough. Now you know what is the basic essence of this concept. I must have just 3-4 points. I don't need to have all the 10 sources in my notes on interpretative sociology. Rather, I must have 4-5 points on interpretative sociology to know the essence of interpretative sociology. This is what we call as consolidation, and that is mostly missing because students are not giving enough time to themselves. They are just giving time to notes and PDFs which they are downloading freely and creating trouble for themselves, which they realize only when they end up having a compilation of huge set of bundles with them, which they look at every day and get worried. So consolidation, please remember, consolidation lies in summarizing things, not in adding things in your notes. Okay, that is what the basic essence is, and you must do it all by yourself, and you know whether you know or you don't know. And if you know that you don't know, you must summarize things, make life simple for yourself, make concepts simple for yourself. Don't ratify. If you have to ratify something, that means you are yet to know it. And if you have simplified enough for you to recall it anytime you like, that means you have now known it. And that is what we call as consolidation. Okay. Sir, I prepared optional by self. I would be writing answer in DAMP. I'm doubtful about answer writing. No issue. Most of the students are definitely doubtful about writing, but yes, only when you write, you get over your doubts. Otherwise, you stay in doubts. So the solution lies in writing only. There is no other method. Okay. It's easier said than done. ऐसे कुछ बोला जाता है अंग्रेजी में, कहना आसान है, करना मुश्किल है, बट करने में ही सब सोल्यूशन भी है. तो राइटिंग करना है, राइटिंग से बचना है, तो राइटिंग भी करना ही पड़ेगा. मतलब कि और कुछ सोल्यूशन भी नहीं है. Sir, I prepared optional by self. I would be writing answer in DAMP and rightful. Yeah, this is something I have already explained. Also, some concepts are not clear. Yes, concepts not clear is something that is known, is given. It's not possible to have clarity on every concept, but as you write, as you struggle, as you understand that what you have written is not the demand, what you have written is notes, then you understand the clarity of the concept, and next time onwards you don't repeat the same. So basically, only when we commit mistake do we come to know what is the right thing which was supposed to be done. But if we don't even write in the first place, how we then commit mistake and how we then learn what is supposed to be written? So that means the way to know what is right is to write and then know what was wrong, so that next time you don't do the same thing and get it right next time onwards. This is the process. We can't escape the process. Okay. Okay, guys. So I'll conclude the session for today. I think I've addressed what I wanted to address. Always remember the steps which I just talked about. These are the broad steps. Okay, these are the broad steps. And when we start our discussion of first question, we will clarify each of the steps, how we approach, how we write, how we conclude, what is the way to conclude, how do we paraphrase, do we include criticism or not, what extent do we write criticism, do we need to add multiple thinkers or few thinkers are sufficient, how many thinkers, when to write, how to write, which one to write. So these are the questions that we gradually take as we progress, as we evolve, as we proceed through the program. Okay, so sir, will all PYQ be covered? Sir, can we have view of better copies? All PYQ, of course, will not be covered, Shivam Gupta, because PYQs, as you know, there are approximately 1000 PYQs, I think, if you consider all the questions asked by UPSC in sociology paper ever since it started optional mode in the examination pattern. You would see there are 1000 PYQs. We can't cover all the 1000 PYQs, but yes, more than PYQ, which we definitely cover, approximately 50% of PYQ from the past 10 years will be covered. But yes, more than PYQ, what you will understand is how to approach any question which can later on become a PYQ for the next generation of students. Because we can't assume that all questions get repeated. We must prepare ourselves to uh, eat and catch the fish all by ourselves, then to be uh, what we call as fed the same fish every day by someone else. So, which means that we must be ready to understand and decode the question all by ourselves. So, by that logic, you can be prepared or you can stay prepared for the questions which have not yet been asked by UPSC as of yet, but may get asked by UPSC next year onwards. Okay. So, this is the kind of preparation that you should aim for. Okay. Mishra Srishti, thanks sir, I'm excited as well as ready to write from Monday. Oh, that's really great to know, Srishti. I'm also super excited to see you guys on Monday and start with our first question. Because, you know, DAMP personally is my favorite program out of all the program that we run. Foundation, Crash Course, DAMP is something that makes not just you discipline, but it also imparts discipline on me. So I really like it that we are dealing with 2 questions every day, Monday to Friday on Saturday, and that actually helps in keeping check on ourselves. Okay, we can see the so-called progression at our end all by our own. We can see, okay, last day I committed this mistake, at least this mistake is not there in my next answer next day. Let me see what kind of mistake evaluator will now find out. Will he really find out or will he really get impressed this time around? It is more like a play that we are doing every day and learning things. Okay, fine. Sir, I understood topics in detail and made notes, but those are of more than 800 pages. Now I'm thinking to shorten them. Please tell, should I make them before writing answer or after? Well, you can shorten the notes as you read and write answers. It is more like a process. As you refer your notes for, you know, what we call as writing answer on the question that we are going to give you. Like in the first day, we will give you a question from the first bullet itself. I think you can check the schedule. Of course, you will read your notes for the first bullet and then you will attempt the answer. And then you will realize whether there is a gap between what you wrote and what was asked, and accordingly you will keep shortening your notes, which may have taken a lot of your time initially to write the first answer. Okay, so it's like you write and then you rewrite your own micro ones. And in order to summarize, what I'm trying to tell you is, if you have your own notes with you, whatever you have with you, read them according to DAMP syllabus or schedule. Okay, keep a target for yourself that, like, for Monday, coming Monday, our first bullet point will be covered. So you must cover first bullet point at your own end and then write answer same day on Monday on the question given from the first bullet. Check evaluated copy and model answer. And discussion also, if you want video discussion live one, you can also check that, and then see the gap as to why you scored high or low. You may have scored very high or you may have scored very low. Check the reason behind getting both, and accordingly you will understand. Accordingly, you understand to what extent you need to shorten your notes and which part of the notes need to be shortened and how. So it is something that you learn as you progress with answer writing. There is no other way. Okay. Okay. Fine, guys. Sir, would we be able to learn from decent answers or copies? Yes. But remember, we upload toppers copy just for reference. Okay. So that you are able to understand how exactly toppers may have secured marks. But nobody is born topper, right? People learn first, unlearn, relearn, and then in the process, make it through. Eventually, the copy that we upload as topper copy is the copy which was very processed, finished, polished copy, which may have become polished or finished after going through the same process that everybody should go through, and not directly jump to topper's copy to become a topper. Okay. So there is a process that needs to be followed, and that is something that you will, I am sure, also follow as you progress in the answer writing mode. Okay. Sir, should question be treated as open book or test? I will not recommend you to treat the question as open book. It should be seen as test. Okay. Remember, you have to write one day. You have to write 3-hour long paper, which means you have to cover everything, every bullet. And here you have to cover only one bullet, for which you may have to give hardly 1 hour maximum in your day for quick revision, and then for writing another 20 minutes maximum, considering that you have to write 2 questions. I would not advise or would want you guys to refer notes openly while writing just 1 or 2 questions, that too from 1 or 2 bullet. That would be unfair. That would not be meritocratic by any standard, because many students would be writing without opening the book. And anyway, even if you open the book, that will not really help unless the question is straightforward. But we don't really give straightforward questions because we really want you to brainstorm every time and think through the demand and not directly write everything that you knew. So this is what I have to say. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'll see you on Monday now. Wish you all the best. Thank you.